alcohol,
sex,
food,
gambling,
drugs,
internet,
love.
spending.
There are a million addictions, and everybody is recovering from something. Here to help, it's Recovery Wednesday with America's original radio psychic, Dr. Linda Salvin, along with addiction specialist Candy Finnegan from the Emmy Award-winning television show Intervention. Candy and Dr. Linda are two gals who know recovery because they are in recovery. Listen as they help you bring your recovery to the next level, help you solve your thorniest issues in ways you may have never imagined. Together, they bring you the tools and techniques that bring balance, serenity, and recovery to your life, and the tools you need to find solutions for healing from the disease of addiction. Candy teams up with Dr. Linda to share their over 60 years of combined experience dealing with all areas of recovery. In her decades as a metaphysical clinician, Dr. Linda has helped thousands of people worldwide solve problems on the air and in person with her insights and solutions. So pull up a chair, turn it up, and get ready for a visit on the path to recovery with the one and only Dr. Linda. And now, live from Los Angeles, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Linda Salvin and Candy Finnegan.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Recovery Wednesday. I'm Dr. Linda. That's Candy Finnegan. And today's a special day because it's Candy's 38th anniversary in sobriety. And this is a sober living kind of show where we have talked about sobriety and drug addiction. And well, we're all addicted or attached to something, whether it's drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, food, sex, gambling. There's an ism somewhere. But Candy's day is today, May 1st, and it's 38 years sober. Congratulations, girl.
Thank you so much.
You've earned it.
It's been a wonderful journey.
Up and down the highway and up and down the roads and the cliffs and valleys. And along the way through life, we experience grief. And today's topic is grief. Candy lost her cat last Thursday, Mr. Blue.
Last Wednesday, a week today.
Wednesday, he would lay at the door right behind Candy's chair, and he'd sit there and sleep there while we did the show. And he'd been around for quite a long time, and Candy had to put him down because his kidneys started failing. And then on Thursday, I found out that a friend of mine since 2007, Cat Pacino Coven, had passed away of a heart attack. So between the two of us, there was like a lot of like, oh my God, it's emotional. And by Saturday, I was just stunned. Like, is this real? Because when you hear something of an animal, a person you know, a relative, it's like overwhelming. Then you go through a little process of like denial. No, this isn't real. And then it hits and it gets deep. So we're going to talk about grief today. It's a very real emotion. And when you're in recovery, especially, you walk through the feelings no matter what. As painful as it is, as tearful as it is, there are ways to go through it, right? You went.
So I looked up different scenarios of grief, and it said divorce and breakup of relationships, symptoms of a health loss, the loss of a job, instability in financial sector, having a miscarriage, the retirement process, loss of a beloved pet, an unfulfilled dream, illness of someone close to you, the end of a friendship, a trauma, a person loses their sense of safety, putting the family house up for sale, and loss of security. And then the stages, there are 5 stages of grief. Some agree, some don't agree.
Yep.
Denial, I can't believe this is happening to me. Anger, why is this happening to me? Bargaining, make sure that this does not happen, and in return, I will promise. Depression, I can't do anything because I'm too sad. Acceptance, I am at peace with what has happened, even though I don't like it.
It's a process, and it can take years at times. It can take years, not just days or moments, to go through the phases, especially if it's like my mom. I think the first 3 months I was in total denial and overwhelm on the ethereal level until it finally started to settle. Yeah, we bargain like, oh, just come back, I'll be a better daughter, or just come back, I'll be a better girlfriend, or just give me one more chance, I'll be better, I'll do it right.
Right.
Why did my dog have to die? Why did my cat have to die? Did I not take care of him? Did I not love her enough? We all go through the mental gymnastics of trying to work it out. It's normal. I mean,
So this also has symptoms of grief and loss, and that's emotional, shock and disbelief, which you went through on Saturday,
yes,
sadness, guilt, fear, anger. Typical symptoms of grief are tiredness, immunity weakens, loss, gain, or
weight
weight loss or gain, pain and aches, sleep disorder, and not feeling comfortable in your own skin. And since I've gone through, yesterday was the anniversary of my mom's death, and losing Mike and even my kitty. What I've realized is that I kind of wanted to get over it really fast. And especially with Mike, I just was just paralyzed. And I'd never really been in a real funk. I mean, I've certainly been depressed over situations and
well, last week was
things, but
was
I
the
did-
birthday. Yeah, no, you had some milestone moments last week. The cat plus Mike's birthday, those are milestones. And when those dates hit, you don't have control of how you feel. It just hits.
it just
It comes in.
And, I talked to so many other women who had lost their husbands, and I guess, certainly as years pass, it gets diminished in a small amount of way. But, what one person told me is what I'm living by is that you'll never get over it. And
No,
for that,
it's
I'm
a
eternally
simple-
grateful
it's a-
because I'm never going to get over it,
No, you're not. We're talking about grief. I'm Dr. Linda Salvin. This is Candy Finnegan. Candy's one of the best well-known interventionists in the country. And if you need help with a family member or a friend or a loved one and you want to help them get sober or get out of their addictive behavior, Candy's the one you want to call. If you want to call into the show because you're listening, 561-623-9421 is that number. And you can talk to us about your own experience. It could be a goldfish. It could be your grandfather, your mother, your sister, your brother. I had a man on the show yesterday who I channeled his sister. They were 9.5 months apart. And he's up in Alaska. I channeled years ago. And this was a very staunch left brain Air Force pilot. But I blew his mind when I brought her in, which helped with the grief, the comfort, the closure. And that's part of the process I do. But on a real level, you don't get over it. You got to be, you can, at least for me, a lot of the pain does subside. I don't sit in it. I think the hardest one is still my dog, my mom, the closest loves. As far as ex-boyfriends, friends like Catherine, of course I have the memories, but I'm not in such a funk today like I was over the weekend. I was shocked. And Candy and I spent the day together. We went to a wonderful concert in a beautiful home that's actually a landmark in Los Angeles. That's Art Deco. And President Kennedy had been there back in the 60s. And it was fun. But inside, I was still processing and sad. I couldn't just get up and be the life of the party. It's hard. And when just Candy's tears when she had to go put the cat down, she knew it was inevitable. She knew it was right. But it's still, you take care of a living thing for so many years. It's a part of you.
Yeah, and he was diabetic, and I had a lot of moments in every day when he had to come first because he had to be on insulin and a special diet and so many hours. And I was out last night at CVS, and I thought, oh my God, I've got to hurry up. I got to get home. And, it's 7:30 because that's, insulin time. And I thought, oh, calm down,
Yeah, your program, like how many times I say I got to get home to feed Penny? Oh, she's gone.
Yeah,
Because
I know.
It's the habit.
Yep. And it's inevitable.
Well, it's like coming home to feed your husband or get him ready before he went to the gym or on a concert, help him pack and get ready for the road. And one day it stopped. I just got chills when I said this, so that means he's here. He's here. He's around here. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten the chills like that. But grief is real. The denial, the pain, the disbelief, the bartering, especially. I can say, "Oh gosh, just take me." And a lot of people will call and say, "Why don't you just take me? I want to die now." Because a lot of people, myself included, we don't see the future with the loss, we think life is going to be even shorter and our own mortality is affected, or we want to bargain and go join the one we lost, because why live? And there's a whole process. If you're listening or watching and you want to call in, share your experience about grief. It's deep. It really, it's a real emotion. A lot of people don't like to talk about, even if it's years later. If you're too hung up on the grief where you don't heal, that's the other side of the spectrum where you got a problem, because you can stay in grief too long and miss life, which is for the living, and learn to live with your pain. And that's what we learn in 12-step, that you can learn to go on a day at a time, no matter what. And some days are harder. Some days are full of tears. Some days you want to stay in bed. Some days you don't want to talk to anybody. Some days you're outside in the sunshine. It's just part of our lives.
Some of it happy, some of it not.
Right. So we've both had a weird week, and here we are talking about grief. And the reason I chose the topic is because both Candy and I experienced it in our own ways in the same time frame last week. And at the same time, nobody hit the bottle, hit a joint, hit a pill jar, or, I wasn't out eating almonds or whatever my go-to would be to just numb the pain. I showed up and had tears, healthy tears welled up in my eyes, or I didn't really feel like talking a lot. And that's okay. I just kept to myself. I made the phone call to my friend's husband that I've known for, I guess, the last 15 years, 17 years actually, and gave my condolences. And if there's anything I can do to help with the celebration of life, I'm available, that kind of thing. And I've learned that about being in service. You help, you just show up, you try to help somebody else.
So in Los Angeles and around the area, there's a wonderful nonprofit organization called Our House Grief Support. And the guy is exceptional. And they have all different specific groups for parents who've lost their kids to overdose.
Well, what's it called?
It's called Our House Grief Support Center. And the other one is Grief Haven. It's kind of a support group that meets regularly, and they have different groups for different situations where you lost somebody. And then Our House is so spectacular.
Reminds me of a song we know.
Yeah, that's very true. And there's a lot of different. Children's Hospital has one for and teen hotline support. The Center of Grief, they have some when you lose a child to cancer or an accident or something. So there are support groups that are, I think, really important for somebody. I was able to go to my 12-step community and provide that, but and get the support I needed. But if you don't have that, it's important to be able to freely talk to somebody that will understand and has either been through it themselves or understands that you need the support that you don't have. So that's what it is in Los Angeles. You can also look up grief support on Google. In your area, it will give the nearest support group. So if you're sitting in grief and you can't get out of it, you're not going to get out of it. Let me be the first to tell you that. But finding a way to easier deal with it, I suggest you find a support group for whatever grief that you're feeling. So,
well, what's wonderful is through the years from when we were growing up, there's so much more in the community and the 12-step and the mental health and I guess even social services. It's expanded so much over the last 30, 40, 50 years that there is help available in all different levels, whether it's suicide prevention, if it's grief.
Very true.
I have 3 suicides in my family, and I wish something like this had been around when I was growing up because of the grief that my family experienced, which was never discussed. It was always hidden and stuffed. But that's what people did back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And then in the 70s, 80s, and 90s and onward, we started to open up, and the me generation started talking about feelings and what we want and how we desire certain things. And it was the freedom of bondage of self, because the more you hold it in, the harder it is to deal with. But what was it? When my dog died, I put my dog down, Kayla, in 2006. And there was a place on Woodman here in Sherman Oaks, California, called the Grief Recovery Institute. And the man opened that facility because he lost his dog. And he was in such...
And he also lost a daughter.
Well, did he lose?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it's still going. And Cole James now runs it out of Idaho, and it's mainly Zoom. And I got certified as a grief counselor there. And but John passed away the same day as Mike, from the same thing as Mike. And I've been very close to Jess for many years, but Cole took it over, and he's doing a wonderful job. So you can look up
Grief Recovery.
Grief Recovery.
I mean, it's a difficult topic. It's a personal situation. It's a personal topic. You can be at a concert. You can be in a restaurant. You can be driving down the highway. You could be at the dentist. You don't know where you are. And everybody's experiencing some inner turmoil or processing of a loss. You walk away from a relationship after several years of disappointment, whether it's a divorce or a breakup. There's a grief, there's a loss. You put an animal down, or it dies, or you lose somebody in combat, or however you lose. Loss equals grief. Even a business relationship can fall apart, and there's a moment or two of, what happened? What did I do? What did they do? And then it's one more time, I'm a failure. I feel horrible. I'm going to grieve it. Oh, poor me. And what they say in the program is, oh, poor me, oh, poor me, oh, pour me a drink. Or you have the choice. Choice is to stay in your stuff or reach out and get some assistance and see the light. There's so much negativity on the planet right now, especially on the campuses all across the nation.
Oh, I'm so heartsick about that.
I am too, and I'm Jewish, so I take it personally, and some of it is just so unwarranted. It's a civil war. We have a civil war taking place on campuses across the nation, from Wisconsin, UCLA, USC, Berkeley, Michigan, UT Austin, Columbia, Cornell,
yeah, really.
Yale, all of it.
Yeah, it's like, I think it was so destructive when I look at it this morning that I thought, how could this be happening? This is just gas.
Anger, and righteousness, and you know what? I think, this is my opinion only. Internet started in 1996. We got internet in 1996. It was actually developed in 1993. But by the time the PCs came around, propaganda, people were online. We could search anything without censorship like we have today. And I remember, and I've talked to a few people about this, there used to be propaganda of anti-Semitism, of little toddlers, 1, 2, 3 years old, dressed in army fatigues, holding a play machine gun with a sign that I hate Jews. Well, in the last 20 plus years, those people, those babies, those toddlers have now grown up. And I believe it's that generation that's part of this attack right now, because they were trained to hate. You're not born with hate.
You're not born a hater.
No, you're not. You learn, you're taught, you're brainwashed, you're do this, believe this, or else.
It's a learned behavior.
Yes, it is. And it's unfortunate. That's just my opinion, because I remember the propaganda. I've searched the web over the last few weeks looking for it, and I can't find any reference to it because everything's blocked and censored now. So the government wants you to think and believe only certain ideas, so you can't find what used to be public knowledge. So, but I do remember that. I remember seeing it, and I was horrified then, 20 plus years ago. And now we're witnessing all this hatred and this division. And these kids, like one of them was saying, I paid my tuition and they're barricaded. They can't even go to class.
I know.
That will equal a grief also. Some want to learn. Some are grieving because of their own religious and political beliefs, and they're not being met. Grief isn't just about loss. There's grief in well, maybe can't get to class, or I paid all this money, or I'm missing my test, or they're coming up on finals soon. Grief, thankfully, nobody caught fire when that firecracker went into the tents.
It just
they're
goes
lucky
on and on and on.
Yeah, they're lucky they didn't catch fire. So grief is deep. It's real. It's healable, if that's such a word. You can heal from it, but you learn to cope with it. That's the coping mechanism that we learn in 12-step on how to reach out. I remember being in a meeting the day after my mother died, and it was March 19th, 2009, she died. So I was at a meeting the next day. And the beauty of the meeting was I had lost my mom the day before, and a guy next to me shared his father had died the night before. So after the meeting, we talked, because there for one moment, I've never seen him again. But that's how the universe works. That's how spirit works. That's how God works. I got what I needed at the moment in synchronized time. Somebody heard me. I heard them. I understood his pain. He understood mine. And it was just enough. I went home. I said, Dad, you're not going to believe this, but I was at a meeting and a man just lost his dad like I lost Mom. And he was like, wow, it's good when you can see the magic and see the miracle and feel better in the worst of your feelings. Right, Candy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't make it any less. It just makes it more understandable, I think.
And that we're not alone. We're never alone. And
Right.
we always think we are alone. We are the only one. We are whatever, right? And
Right.
we're not. We're never alone. Our brains tell us we're alone. You go
Absolutely.
outside, there's people everywhere. But grief recovery takes time. Or you finally get to a point, at least for me, I would get to a point where I'm feeling happy, joyous, and free, and I'm a little more vibrant and a little more productive and a little less procrastinating. And then something pops up or someone says something and it triggers a memory. And I go right back to it. Or, remember so-and-so. And oh my God, I haven't thought about him in a couple of years. But yes, I remember when I was at his funeral, and you start reliving it. Just like a song comes on the radio and it brings you back to a point in time in high school or junior high, or something with your birthdays or a date or a significant time. And oh my God, the memories there in college, whatnot. There's always a touchstone.
You're right. You're right. And you never, ever get away from it. Although some days are better than others. It doesn't ever go away, but it seems to be depressed in some manner where it's not in your face all the time.
Right, you're able to cope. That's why we're able to suppress it more, keep going, even though it's inside you. And nobody coming up to you is going to say, oh, hi, Candy, are you in grief? No, you can't see it unless you're really like your eyes are foggy and you're tired and crying. And, even at the height of a grieving moment, sometimes people have the shiniest face. You would never know they're in pain because they're really good at hiding their emotions. But they're on the inside. And that's where alcohol comes in, or that's where drug abuse comes in, or that's where any type of substance abuse might come in, because they want to put on a happy face. But in their moments of quiet, private time, the abuse can start. Taking some pills, snorting some coke, smoking a joint, having a cigarette, drinking a glass of wine or whiskey or whatever the thing is. So you don't know. Candy's dealing with a gambling client right now. Talk about gambling being part of the ism or the disease that comes under the umbrella of addiction. Talk about that.
Well, I think that we could do a show on it. It's a very strange addiction because it's based on kind of an OCD type of situation that you always think your luck is going to change, and a lot of internet gambling came about during COVID, and that became a real big problem, as did video game addiction. And in this particular case, these really privileged kids got involved in private poker games in houses, and it's these kids really don't have the money, their parents do. And but the threats that somebody would harm your kid over money that's owed, I would have to say if the parents have it, they always pay it. So yeah, it's a long term.
Oh yeah, bookies, and just like you see in the movies or TV shows, when somebody's got a debt, whether it's gang, mafia, bookers, whatever, they'll come and they'll haunt and they'll threaten. And on top of the loss of the money, and I'm sure your client or clients who go through this, the high is the gamble. Then there's the low of the crash. If they're out of the money, then that causes a depression and the grief again. So they got to go back up, right? Isn't it that same?
Well, and they're so dependent on luck. And it's the play of the cards. I mean, luck has
not intended.
That no matter how much you think you know about the game, there's somebody better than you. So, and there's systems and all the rest of it. There's been people who supposedly, in quote, can beat the system. I think Ben Affleck was one of them, and he wasn't allowed in any casinos.
I remember that story.
And so I think that's a possibility too. But when these private home games and stuff, they're not regulated. And so there isn't anybody over them saying, other than they threaten the person who owes them the money. And actually speaking, gambling addiction has the highest rate of suicide of any other.
Yes, it does.
Hopeless.
I knew somebody whose father owed over $1 million who committed suicide, and he was in the GA Gambling Anonymous program. But no matter how much hope he had or faith, he knew he'd never get out. She ended up paying all the debts off through loans, but she cleaned up his mess. So it's not just the person suffering, but the family.
Well, when the person dies, the debt doesn't go away.
No.
I have a friend. My husband had a friend who's a wonderful man, and he's got many years of sobriety now, but he also had a drinking problem, but his top addiction was gambling, and he lost his wife and his kids and his house and his job and nothing else there was. And he was on the brink of suicide, and he started going to Gamblers Anonymous, and he's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful guy. And if I have a problem with gambler, I usually always call him. He's gone on a couple interventions with me.
Oh, that's great.
I can't say I know how you feel because I don't.
Right.
I don't like to gamble. If I'm going to gamble, I'd rather gamble on somebody than something. So, but he's really knowledgeable and a terrific guy. So, but in this situation, there's a psychiatrist at UCLA. His name is Dr. Timothy Fong, Fong, and he is a gambling expert. And I've called on him many times. I called on him with the show when I had a gambling intervention. And so because of it, I just have spoken to him about this case. And he's head of addiction services at UCLA and very reachable. But gambling, he is an absolute expert on, which I'm very grateful for.
And on the other side of it, it goes back to our topic of grief. The parents are grieving. they're sad, they're out of control, or they're trying to help their child, or if it's a loved one like a husband or wife. And sometimes you lose, like you said, you lose the family because the disease and the addiction is more powerful than the commitment to keep the family going. And a lot of people lose their relationships, not just with gambling, but with alcohol and drugs. And sometimes they say when you walk into the program, the only thing you have to change in your life is everything, and you don't understand that until you get going into what's really wrong to make it right. I got into a horrible business situation again. I made the wrong executive decision back in September. I remember paying for this marketing firm, and the next day I was in bed for a month because my body took on so much negativity. I went into shock. I went back and looked at a diary, looked at the date, and I remember. And then I just, this whole thing came to a culmination yesterday, and I could feel it leaving me. But one more time, I made the wrong decision because it didn't work, and it's not my village of people or whatever. It wasn't compatible, and I got ripped off. And one of the people I work with calls this woman a grifter, which I really didn't know the definition, which is a scammer. Of course, if there's one out there, I find it. It's kind of like gambling. But I trusted these people to do a job, and one more time, no, I'm the wrong one. And I defended my product. And then there's a grief. There's a letting go because I had high expectations. And again, even emotions go up and down, just like I would think in gambling and oh my God, I hit a jackpot. Oh, I lost the money. Oh, I have the date. Oh, I don't have them anymore. Oh, I've got the dog. I don't have her anymore. It's this up and down thing. And then there's always the fall, which goes to a low, which can be grievance. Our job as helpers for people like us and you is that we're here to help, not fall so deep in the well. Or if you start going down, there's someone there to get you just far enough. Like when Candy and I had dinner after this concert the other night, I was sad, kind of quiet, but I got through it, and then I was fine the next day. But it was just, she allowed me to process.
You got to feel the feelings, or
yeah,
it just escalates. It just piles one on top of another.
So whether it's money, human, animal, even a fish, a turtle, a butterfly. I walk outside and I see a little bee on the pavement that had died. I pick it up and put it in the plant, and I say, I'm sorry, because I know we as people in our environment are killing the bees quicker than their 41-day lifespan. But it's still, it hurts me. I'm sensitive, so I want to put the bee away, and I feel bad for that little soul. And without bees, our life doesn't really go real well because they're like part of the nucleus of the planet. It doesn't matter how you see things, people, but it's okay to feel what you feel. It just don't go so dark and so deep that you can't get out of the well. You got to know that there's light, that there's hope, that there's faith, that there's a hand to take you down a different direction. That's what Candy does for a living. She's on the phone day and night. It's hard to get a hold of her during the day. She's constantly.
Yes, it is.
Why don't you talk about 38 years of sobriety? I'm already 38 and a half, but let's hear from you now that you're catching up.
Well, it's been good. It's been bad. It's been wonderful. It's been sad. It's been
life.
Hard. It's been easy. But overall, it not only changed my life, but it gave me a career I never even knew I wanted. And it's been able to help people help themselves. And it's kept me sober. I don't think there's such a thing as a drunk interventionist, maybe.
We don't know who's.
I'm going to try it out. But the gift of that was given to me so freely of recovery, I've been able to give back to not only other women that I've sponsored, but also be available to help people when they're at their wits' ends or they're at the end of the rope and they didn't know what else to do. I'm lucky enough if they call me and ask me for help, because most likely I have a solution. I've worked on it for many years, and I do a lot of resource and a lot of placement, and it's not impossible. If, Linda and I can do it, and 8 million other people, then I think that it's possible for them to do it too.
A day at a time. We've talked about that. And sometimes you got to white knuckle it, as they say, like it hurts, or, oh God, I can't do this, or I can't go to sleep, or I can't get through lunch, or I can't go to this event unless I get loaded or eat or drink, and then I can feel comfortable. And again, it's like you said in one of the grief symptoms, it's about feeling okay in your own skin. And sometimes, not sometimes, we will use and abuse substances to feel better in our own skin because so much grief or guilt or shame or fear or anxiety or whatever, that the substance or the gambling, whatever we're using, helps numb that emotion.
Right. You know, I think that I remember, as I'd said before, when I first got sober, I'd see people of 20 years and they're still in meetings and 35 years. And I'd go, what in the
Why
world?
are they here? What are they doing?
Why
What
are
is wrong with I do
And,
too.
and here I am, and just like you. So,
Well, we're now
I'm not ever
considered the
going to
old
turn my back
timers.
on it. You know,
We
they
used
say
to-
you go to 12 step until you like it. You know, by the way, I like it. So I'm staying, you know, I don't get rid of things I like. So, but it was strange that, I used to feel really sorry for those people like Marty, you know, who had 40 years and went to 5 meetings a week. I'd go, what are you doing? It was his life because he was older and had lost his family and over the years, and it kept him in the mix with
Sorry.
young people, and he got to help a lot of people. So it's like, as I look back on it,
But
I
he
am,
loved it. He loved helping people. He loved showing
my
up. He loved
God.
talking his story. He was great.
yep. And you know, it's like, I think that if you have to stay connected. I certainly don't go to as many meetings as I used to. But the meetings I do go, I spoke at 8:00 Sunday morning.
How'd that go?
Oh, it was just great. You know, a lot of people were there, and I'd say out of the 10 people that shared, 8 of them shared about Mike. So can't get away from that. But you know, I sometimes need to hear myself talk about how I got here and how I stayed here and how I'm not hoping not to go anywhere a day at a time. So I think all of that is a real joy for me. But it's hard to convince people. I know that I listened for a long time to hear my story. Did I ever hear my exact story? No, but I heard enough of it that that I could relate and know that somebody else had been successful. And so, yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
Well, you lost your sponsor recently too. That's another grief.
Yeah,
After how many 38 years of knowing somebody as a confidant.
Yeah, it's yeah, her service is her memorial is Sunday. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, I had her for 35 years. Yep. And in this situation, she had truly suffered a lot. So I wasn't certainly grateful that she was out of pain, but I knew that it was her choice. She quit doing treatments and stuff. So I accept that. I grieved her actually probably over a year ago because, you know, she was getting non-communicative and
that's a part of it, is the letting go when you prepare yourself for the final end. Just like I know my father's still alive. He's 95 this year. I had lunch with him the other day. I have learned to detach a lot because I can't get my needs met by him anymore because he's just not available mentally. And even though I felt bad on Sunday, he called the next day to see how I was. He wanted to say hello. And that was his way of saying, I love you. I miss you. I'm sorry, you know, whatever, stay in touch. But he can't communicate. And it's like losing the cat. You knew the cat was wasting. You knew the cat might be going, or you knew that she was going to be dying. We prepare ourselves. But when it really happens, then the grief takes over. And again, we go into emotional shock and the defenses and the sadness and the fear and the anger and the and the trying to negotiate and barter and bargain again. No matter how it happens, grief is grief. You can't escape it.
yeah. Yeah.
It's
And
gonna
you know,
happen.
I was saying to the to this vet, my who this veterinary service is the best thing that ever happened to me, and they only deal in cats, and most vets are really dog vets.
Yep.
They have a few people that know cats, but this is a strictly veterinarian hospital that is nothing but people who love cats, take care of cats, and I I'm just so grateful that I found them. And she said to me, you know, some people, I was saying to her that some people who get sober and they have animals, they're much closer to their animals than are anybody else because they don't
Yeah.
argue with them, they don't tattle.
And there's
They-
unconditional love.
They're there unconditionally, loving them no matter what. And that I have seen people who have mourned their animals more than they mourn the loss of a family member because they were truly their trusted friend. And I've had a lot of people that wouldn't go to treatment because there was nobody to take care of their animals, and didn't have the money to put them in a place for 30 days. I always thought a great business would be a rehab for animals after they'd lived with an addict and they went to treatment.
I think that's kind of a good idea.
Well, I don't have a backyard, so but yeah, I've always thought what a great. There was a place that kind of did it in outside of Austin, Texas, in Smithville, but you know, you can't have a whole bunch of animals together, and a lot of them, strangely enough or sadly enough, had been neglected. And you can't have them all in the same pen. So it got them in cats. They've got to be indoors before they're snatched. So they transferred a garage into like a kitty hut. But, you know, all cats don't get along. So it ended up not working out. But yeah, I thought it was a great idea because I can't tell you how many. One time on the show, I did it on a girl, and her grandmother, I think, had her Chihuahua, and I drove 45 miles so this girl could say goodbye to her Chihuahua while she went to treatment. The reason the grandmother had the dog was because she wasn't taking care of it. So I just thought, whatever it takes, I'll do it. Get in the car, let's go.
And again, that goes back to being of service.
Well, but it also gets back to getting somebody to go to treatment at any cost. So that was what I was there for. But yeah, no, it's animals. I gotta tell you, I don't trust people that don't like animals. Let me just say that.
Well, they don't see them as sentient beings either when they're clobbering them or putting
that or children.
That too, but especially with an animal that is helpless, and children are helpless, the abuse that takes place, or the firecrackers up the tail, or the horrible stories.
Oh my God! Don't even
you know, you see the pictures, and these poor animals, they're not human, but they're alive. They feel, they have skin, they have organs, they're sentient, and how people don't understand horses, buffalo, snakes, even though some are kind of weird and you don't want to deal with them. An alligator, you don't want to get close to them, but they're still alive. You know, there's planetary life. It's life, but we want to take
it's a place in our universe, you know, and we have to respect and let them live where they need to live.
It's a weird world.
Well, I'm not going to have a pet alligator in the tub. Thanks.
No, we're almost at the end of the show. We get about 4 more minutes. What else do you want to say here?
Well, just
celebrating 38 years of sobriety. We're talking about grief. We've both gone through some shocking, painful
don't
moments.
hide from grief because it will overwhelm and consume you. Do something about it. Share it with somebody, whether it's a therapist or a grief counselor. And all you have to do is look, and there'll be somebody there to help you. You don't have to go through this alone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's devastating and it's overwhelming, and ask for help because it does really work. I'm a perfect example of that. So it's, my dad used to say when I was little, and I never understood it for years and years, is none of us are going to get out of here alive. Some of us leave easier than others, and some do truly suffer. But loving someone to death is a great honor, and I've done it several times in my life. And just don't be not strong enough to tell somebody you love them every day. You don't know what tomorrow brings. That's the truth. We know that. So and
that's what the world needs now more than ever, as we get into weirder and weirder events out there. On the show yesterday, Grizz, his name is Jim, but they call him Grizz because he looked like a grizzly bear. He was talking about all these marches and protests and what's going on. But when we were growing up, the Beatles were famous and the marches was all about love. Where's the love now? We need to bring the love back. If everybody would just start loving each other again and accepting that we're all different, but we're all the same, we could calm all this down. So of the division of the races and the religions and the politics, my God, we're all going. It's
that's how that song was invented. Is all you need is love.
Love. But
there are situations that love is not enough.
But we can start with loving and getting back to when you walk into the program, like you did 38 years ago today. They said, "We will love you until you love yourself back."
Yeah.
We will love you enough so that you can start.
We will love you until you love yourself.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand it, but boy, I do now.
Yep. Takes time like everything else. It's a process. I'm Dr. Linda Salvin. That's Candy Finnegan. We are both in recovery. We are both here to help you. You're going to see our contact information at the end of this little show here. We'll have it at the end. We'll see you next week with a new topic, and we hope that you enjoy the show. And if you need us, we're here. Have a good day, everybody. Happy birthday, Candy.
Thanks, Linda.
Good job. Love you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed Recovery Wednesday. You can reach Dr. Linda at 888-509-1077 or at lindasalvin.com and Candy Finnegan at candyfinnegan@aol.com. Need a breakthrough of your own? Ready for answers or insights nobody else has? Reserve your own one-on-one in-person chat. Dr. Linda isn't just for other people. Dr. Linda gets results for you. And it's easy. Contact details are on screen now. Just click on lindasalvin.com or call toll-free 888-509-1077. That's lindasalvin.com or toll-free at 888-509-1077.